Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Midday Western U.S. Regional Forecast video brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, with the end of April and the beginning of May, I thought we'd just take a quick look at what the normal differences are between the 2 months in terms of precipitation. So this comes from the Prism Climate Group, and it's a great set of data here. I use it all the time, but they made these great climo maps I'm just going to show you. So this would be the 30-year normal for precipitation for the month of April. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to flick over now to what it is for May. If we kind of go back and forth there, you can see some interesting changes that happen across the United States. For example, when you go from April to May in the eastern part of the country, it tends to get quite a bit wetter. But in the western part of the United States, here's April again, going over to May. This is when we start to see the real beginning of our dry season. And it tends to last about 5 months here across the western part of the United States. Now, I put my email down here in the bottom right, and that's because as we move now into the dry season and the primary growing season, I want to put out a request for my viewers. And that is across the western part of the United States, you have unique challenges when it comes to growing a crop. And during those summer months, a lot of those challenges have to deal with the timing, of course, of any precipitation that we do get, but a lot with evaporation, a lot with surface temperatures, and then stress, of course, that can cause issues with fires later in the season. I would just ask that if you feel comfortable and you'd like to, you can email me if there's something that you think that I should be showing routinely, and if I get enough requests about a certain thing, then I'm going to start including it. Remember, I can't make these hyper-local just simply because we try to cover such a broad region in these forecast videos. But anything you'd like to give me in terms of input, you can either email me or just put it in the comments of the video. I would love to get that feedback so I can continue to improve the forecast across the West. Now, looking back over the month of April, this is our last 30 days in terms of percent of normal precipitation. And so much of the very wet conditions that we see down here in Southern California were, of course, from the systems we saw back in the middle part of the month. So the end of the month tended a lot drier here. But overall, the western part of the United States was quite dry outside of that region in California throughout the month of April. So let's do this, and let's just take a look now at our 8-station index here from the Northern Sierra precipitation region. And remember that this would have been the normal rate of accumulation of precipitation during our wet season. And we're now entering this flatter time period, which is, of course, the dry season. So we're going to get into there at 27 inches. So that is clearly well below the average, which would have been somewhere around 47 inches. So in total, the deficit was sizable here as we go into our dry season. Sliding a bit further south to the San Joaquin Valley, it's a very similar story. Normal would have been something around 36, 37 inches, and we're at 22 right now. And so if we keep going south one last time, this is down to the Tulare Basin. And again, we're sitting here right around what we were in 2017, 2018. So you can see they've kind of lined that up pretty well with what we had during that time period. So overall, even though we did really increase the precipitation here over the month of March and into early April, this was a little bit not enough too late. So we'll check in quickly in the California the reservoir basins. And when I look around the state, about the only two that I see that are a little bit lower than the historical averages are these two. And Lake Oroville really shown up with below average. And I'm curious, I have not been out to visit much. I was there in the winter, but I didn't get out to see any of the reservoirs. Have we got the damage cleaned up from when Lake Oroville broke a couple of years ago due to tremendous flooding problems that we had there? So just something I'm curious about, if that's going to be one of the major problems with keeping that lake full. Okay, from there, let's take a look at our latest drought monitor update. This is what was released yesterday. And the issue when we get to this time of year is with the natural drying down of things. The drought that we see in the western part of the United States will persist over the next 5 months regardless, just simply because of how dry things are normally. So usually drought at this point can only get worse. So when you see this particular map, these are going to be the areas we're going to have to watch very, very carefully. Now, we did see a couple of regions that kind of saw some degradation and drought, specifically right here in this part of California and over here in Nevada and southern parts of Idaho. Just saw a 1-class drop in the last week. So we just need to keep a close eye on this as we progress through the rest of the season. Now, over the last couple of days, we did have, as the flow came in, kind of almost out of the south and west like this, we erupted into the hot and unstable atmosphere, several thunderstorms. You can see here on our map that shows the last 72 hours of total accumulated precipitation that some locally heavy rain did fall in parts of eastern Oregon and into Idaho and into the mountains of Montana. And I did grab this map that shows, kind of zoomed in here over the Pacific Northwest, where we did did pick up some hail on radar, and several locations here picking up for some small pea-sized, maybe a little bit bigger than that hail. Now, just so you know, what you see down here in Nevada, that is not hail, even though it shows up on the map. This is erroneous data that needed to be pulled out of the data set. This is actually a radar spike caused by a blocked beam. So why it's blocked, I don't know, but this is basically where this particular radar saw extremely bright microwaves blasted into the dish itself. Usually it's blocked for military purposes, so something interesting to think about down there in Nevada. But I did get a video here of what some of that hail looked like in eastern Oregon, and again, you can see a lot of pea-sized hail falling here, and it looked like snow, but some of these storms really packed a punch. Okay, as we move forward in this forecast, I want to first animate for you the upper level wind pattern, because there's a few major differences that we need to be discussing. First of all the action out of the subtropics, and what I mean by that is the strong subtropical jet stream that had fired through here for a while seems to have calmed down substantially. What we're going to be keeping a very close eye on is the behavior of a trough feature, which right now you can see has got the winds flowing to the south of it here, and the eventual development of more ridging across the western part of the United States as the atmosphere goes into this highly amplified pattern in the near term, which features a big ridge out west and a trough over the east. Some of the reasons why we've calmed this down, and we addressed this in this week's long range update, is because of the behavior here in the Central Pacific with the trade winds. So you can see that over the last half month and then forecast for the next 15 days, the trade winds, which come off of South America and then run like this across the Pacific. Now remember, those are surface winds. I drew that arrow over. You're watching an animation of upper level winds, but those surface winds have been stronger and they're anticipated to get stronger. So when we see that, it tends to slow down the mid-latitude jet stream pattern, the polar jet stream pattern, and therefore it tends to get more blocky in nature. In other words, big ridges and big troughs. So what this is going to do, well, let's just animate for you the next 7 days here of total accumulated precipitation. Our first big push of precipitation comes in Saturday and into early Sunday into parts of coastal Oregon and Washington. But outside of that, as we just kind of let this play forward, we're not going to be adding too much more precipitation after that. As you can see here, the big pushes of precipitation, in fact, I'll just let this run all the way out to day 10, is really going to be for the west coast pushing up here. And that's where that deeper trough becomes established. So operational models right now, if you get down here, into this section, right now are showing up with less than average precipitation, at least through day 10. But I do want to talk specifically about this area as we look out into week 2 because of the ridge that's forming and what we might be seeing push underneath that. It's not showing up well in the operational models, but it's something I want to be discussing with you here in a few moments. So let's go right over to the European run and take a look at how things progress. So early this morning, Friday, we can see that we were relatively cloud or precipitation free across the west. And as we play this one forward, let's just step that back there. Here's the first low pressure system that comes curling up on the tail end of that trough out west. By Friday night, getting into Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon and evening, that's when the tail end of that front comes pushing in here into Northern California, Oregon, and Washington. I'm not anticipating much at all getting over the mountains, so just very lightly scattered precipitation, maybe a few embedded thunderstorms in here as this front comes pressing on through for parts of eastern Oregon, Washington, then getting over to Idaho. Notice the reason why this happened, that high pressure cell which was sitting here has backed off, okay? As we continue to play this forward, what we're going to notice is that getting into Saturday night and into early Sunday morning, that first system pulls on through. Now beyond this, you're going to see that the systems are tending to curl up into early next week into the deeper upper level low that's sitting here. And therefore, they're not going to be able to make their way as quickly to the west coast of North America. So, for example, Monday morning, afternoon, and evening, see how that low pressure system stays here? Only lightly scattered precip then gets into coastal Oregon and Washington, unlike the system that came through over the weekend. And that's going to be kind of the name of the game as we play this out to midweek next week. This is Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon and evening, and now getting into Thursday morning, afternoon, and evening. And one of the things I am concerned about as this pattern evolves is, one, going to be some stronger winds at times across the west coast, higher evaporation rates with the warmer temperatures that come in, because the pattern, as you see here, by the time we get to May 7th, a week from now, it's going to be highly amplified in its flow. So we need to talk about that, because on night of May 7th and the morning of May 8th, look at this ridge, deep trough, big ridge, deep trough. In fact, this ridge along the west coast extends clear here into the Arctic, which is what's dividing this trough here in the west and this one into the east. Now, something I want to pay close attention to, we were watching here what we call our precipitable water anomaly maps. That tells us where the atmosphere is containing more moisture than normal or less. And what we see is as we work out here past the 7th, so into the 8th, 9th, and 10th, with this ridge that's developing, we're almost getting monsoonal-like flow coming in here, well, out of the Caribbean, part of the Gulf of Mexico, then through Mexico, pushing into the desert southwest. We also see it coming here out of the East Pacific. Now, I would normally see something like this in the heart of summer, but the flow pattern is getting so amplified right now, we might be able to bring that in, which could increase our precipitation chances into week 2. Now, that would only be down here, and you can start to see that, right? See the moist axis kind of possibly increasing precipitation amounts, or at least making them near normal for parts of Arizona, New Mexico, and maybe parts of Southern California. But outside of this area, drier than average conditions, I think, persist now as we work our way from May 8th through the 15th. Talking about temperatures, let's just watch day by day our maximum temperatures compared to normal. So in the day on Friday, really nice day for the West Coast here in terms of temperatures overall. Not too anomalous, a little bit warmer bias. As we go from Friday into Saturday, a little bit of cooler weather coming in. Remember, this is as we're watching that main front kind of work its way on to the shore here, and it really shows up on Sunday, okay? So that's when we have a cooler day on tap for much of the Pacific Northwest and parts of Northern California. But as we get past Sunday, toward Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, when the pattern now is getting fully established in that deeper trough out east and the broader ridge out west, notice we go back over to triple-digit heat in the southwest, see a lot of mid to upper 80s in the Central Valley, and our temperatures overall are warmer than normal. So let's keep going. This is Wednesday into next Thursday. Another very hot day here with a lot of 90s being recorded in the Central Valley of California with triple-digit down here in the desert. So this is the way the pattern's evolving, and it's certainly one that's going to be highly amplified. So just to give you some of those numbers here, I was kind of interested to see this. We went off my chart here in parts of the Mojave Desert. You can see with numbers here evaporating over 3 inches of water from the soil during that time period. We're going to see in through the Central Valley over the next week generally 1.5 to 2 inches of evaporation here. And then as you get back into Arizona and New Mexico, the numbers are really going to be, of course, elevation dependent as they normally are, but widespread 2+ inches of evaporation. Going beyond that, this is now day 5 through 10 and day 10 through 15 from the European model, and we don't really break away. So we're going to be accumulating quite a bit of heat. For some crops, the rapid accumulation of this heat is very good. This will also work to pretty quickly melt the snow in the mountains. So we're going to have to watch that carefully as well. And the last thing I want to finish up with you here is this is now May 15th through the 22nd. Now, there is some reason to call in some uncertainty into this forecast, and the reason why is because this overall pattern is going to start to shift by about May 9, 10, 11, that time period. But still, the models are hanging on to the warmer bias across the western part of the United States, and also overall near average to drier than average conditions during that time period. But again, we expect that for this time of year as we move into the month of May, as we talked about at the beginning of this video. I do want to watch very carefully. I want you all to be watching with me the North Pacific Ocean temperatures throughout the month of May, and also the equatorial Pacific to see how things evolve, because if we do push ourselves into a La Nina-like summer, that could really change things up. We'll be researching it and reporting back to you every day next week. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you again on Monday. Thank you.